The chair was empty. It wasn't the kind of thing you think about in the middle of your day, but there I was, staring at the empty chair at the dining table. Clara had always sat there. Every morning, every evening. It had been like a ritual, the steady presence of her at that table. But tonight, there was no Clara. She hadn't called, hadn't texted. I had just come home from a late meeting and expected the usual. Her, sitting at the table, finishing her glass of wine, telling me about her day, asking about mine. But there was no one. I poured myself a drink, my hand a little unsteady, but not from the alcohol. It was the silence, the absence of her presence. Something felt off, but I couldn't place it. A few minutes later, the door opened, and Clara stepped inside. But it wasn't the normal greeting, wasn't the warm smile that greeted me every evening. She didn't even look up at me as she walked past the living room. She was holding her purse tightly in her hand, and for a split second, I thought I saw her eyes filled with something I couldn't define. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Clara?" I asked, my voice careful, not wanting to push her too much. She stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'm not hungry," she said quietly. That was unusual. Clara was always the one who set the table, the one who cared about dinner. We had our little routine, dinner together, no phones, just us. But tonight, it was as though she had forgotten about it. Or maybe she had just stopped caring. I couldn't let it go. Something felt wrong, like a knot that wouldn't loosen. "Clara," I repeated, this time walking toward her. "What's going on?" She finally turned to me, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Instead, there was something colder, something harder. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something like guilt, but it vanished as she spoke. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice soft, but sharp. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know why, but I felt a sudden dread that washed over me. I nodded, gesturing toward the couch. "All right, sit down," I said, trying to steady myself. Clara took a seat, her purse still clutched in her lap, her eyes avoiding mine. The air felt thick, charged with something I didn't want to confront. I could feel my pulse quickening, the silence in the room growing louder, until I couldn't take it anymore. "What's going on, Clara? Why are you acting like this?" She looked at me, finally, but her gaze was distant. She wasn't looking at me like she usually did, like she had always done. It was almost as though she was seeing something else entirely. "Mark, I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, her voice steady, but her words trembled. "About everything. About us." My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen this coming. We were fine, weren't we? Sure, there were some moments where I felt like we were growing apart, but nothing serious. Nothing that couldn't be fixed with a conversation. But now she was speaking as though everything we had built was starting to crumble. "You've been distant," I said, almost as if it was an accusation, but my voice betrayed me. It was more of a question than anything else. Clara nodded slowly, her fingers tapping nervously against her purse. "I know, and I've been trying to figure out why. Why I felt this way, why I haven't been myself." "Clara, you're scaring me. What's going on?" She inhaled sharply, as if she had been holding something in for far too long. And then she said the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. "I'm seeing someone else." I froze. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood her. Maybe the words didn't come out right. But no, she was looking at me, her eyes filled with a strange mix of sadness and determination. She wasn't joking. "Who?" I croaked, barely able to find my voice. "Who are you seeing?" Clara shifted in her seat, her eyes flicking to the side, as if she couldn't even bring herself to say the name. "His name is Ethan. I met him a few months ago," she said, her voice quiet, but cutting. "He's different from you, Mark. He's exciting. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in a long time." I couldn't breathe. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, but there was a strange numbness that washed over me. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Clara, the woman I had spent years with, the woman I thought I knew, was telling me that she had been seeing someone else. "I don't understand," I said, my voice hoarse. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you just talk to me?" Her eyes flickered with guilt. "I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to see you like this." "But you did, Clara. You did hurt me. I'm sitting here, watching the woman I love tell me that she's been with someone else, and you're telling me you didn't want to hurt me?" She winced at my words, but she didn't defend herself. She didn't try to explain. She just sat there, her gaze flicking away as if she couldn't bear to look at me anymore. "I'm sorry, Mark. I really am. But I don't think I can do this anymore." I felt my chest tighten. Every breath was shallow, as if the air itself had become too thick to take in. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Her words, the words I never thought I'd hear, hung in the air like a noxious cloud. I'm seeing someone else. How do you even respond to something like that? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Clara, the woman I had spent so many years with, had been with someone else. And yet, here I was, sitting in the same room as her, trying to process the impossible. How long? The question slipped out before I could stop it. My voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of it was crushing. Her eyes avoided mine. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve, her hands shaking. A few months, she said quietly. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. A few months. I repeated the words, trying to let them settle, trying to understand how I had been so blind. How could I not have seen the signs? Clara was still avoiding my gaze, her eyes now focused on her lap. I didn't know how to tell you, Mark, she murmured. I thought it would go away. I thought I could handle it. But I can't anymore. I stood up abruptly, walking away from her. My head was spinning. My legs felt like they were made of stone, each step heavier than the last. I couldn't stay there, looking at her, hearing her words over and over again. My world was unrecognizable, and all I wanted to do was escape. You can't just drop this on me, Clara, I said, pacing the room, trying to force my thoughts into something coherent. You can't just tell me you've been seeing someone else and expect me to just accept it. I deserve more than that. She stood up, too, but didn't come any closer. I know. I don't know what I was thinking. I never meant to hurt you, Mark. But I'm not the person you think I am anymore. I've changed. The words stung more than I expected. I've changed. How could she say that? How could she just rewrite everything we'd built? I wanted to shout at her, to demand that she explain why. Why him? Why not me? But I held it in. I wasn't sure I could trust myself not to say something I'd regret. Who is he, Clara? Why him? What does he have that I don't? My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. But I couldn't stop the tremor that ran through me. She hesitated. His name is Ethan. We met through work. He's exciting, Mark. He's different. He makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. I wanted to scream at her. How could she make excuses for him? For herself? Wasn't I enough? Wasn't everything we'd built together worth fighting for? But the words caught in my throat. I didn't know if I was angry, heartbroken, or just lost. You've been lying to me for months, Clara, I said, my voice quieter now, but more painful. You've been lying to me every day. Every time I kissed you, every time we had dinner, every time I thought everything was fine, you were out there with him. With him. She winced, her face contorting with guilt. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop. And then, it was too late. I couldn't pull back. I shook my head, trying to push the tears away. I couldn't cry. Not now. So what? You're just going to walk away from this? From everything we've had? Clara took a deep breath, and I saw something break in her eyes. I'm sorry, Mark. I think it's already over. I didn't know what to say. For a long moment, the room was silent except for the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought was my forever, was telling me she was leaving. It didn't feel real. How could it? How could everything we'd built together just disappear? I need some time to think. I finally managed to say, the words barely escaping my lips. Clara nodded. I understand. I think you need to know the truth. I turned away, feeling the weight of her words press down on me like 1,000 pounds. I didn't know what to do with myself anymore. Nothing felt real. Nothing felt like it mattered. I spent the rest of the night pacing. Clara stayed in the bedroom, and I could hear her moving around in there, but I didn't go to her. Not yet. My mind was too full of thoughts, too full of everything she had just thrown at me. I couldn't grasp it, couldn't process it. The betrayal was so raw, so sharp, I felt like I might snap at any moment. Around 3 a.m., I finally sat down on the couch, feeling a bit of the weight lift, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was just my own mind trying to protect itself from the pain. I ran my hands through my hair and stared at the blank TV screen in front of me, trying to piece together some logic in this mess. But nothing made sense. Clara's words replayed in my head, over and over again. I'm seeing someone else. She was right, though. She had changed. In so many ways I hadn't noticed until now. I had been so blind, so wrapped up in the comfort of routine, I hadn't seen the cracks forming around me. And now, those cracks had turned into a gaping chasm. I jumped when I heard her voice from the hallway. "Mark, we need to talk." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. How could I? She came into the living room, standing at the edge of the couch, her arms crossed tightly. She looked smaller than usual. Not physically, but emotionally. There was a sadness about her now, something I hadn't seen before. It wasn't just guilt, it was something deeper. "I know this is hard for you," she began, her voice quiet, almost fragile. "But I need you to understand. I never wanted to hurt you." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had hurt me. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there, staring at her, waiting for something more. Something that would explain everything. "I've been so lost for so long," she continued. "I don't even know who I am anymore. And when I met Ethan, it was like, I don't know. He made me feel alive again. Like the person I used to be." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't apologizing for what she had done to me. She was justifying it. "You think this is about you, Mark," she said, her voice breaking. "But it's not. It's about me. I've been trapped in this version of myself that I don't even recognize, and I needed to break free." I stood up, feeling the room spin. "So what? You just throw everything away? You throw us away because you don't know who you are anymore?" Her eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't try to hide them. She just let them fall. "I don't know, Mark. I just don't know how to fix any of it." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This wasn't just about the affair. This was about everything that had led up to it. The distance, the silence, the things left unsaid. I had ignored so many signs, thinking they were just phases. But now, sitting here in front of her, I realized that I had missed the most important one. She was unhappy. The thought hit me like a ton of bricks. I had spent so long focusing on what I wanted, what I needed, that I never took a step back to really look at her. To see that she was struggling, too. I ran a hand through my hair, shaking my head. "So this is it. This is how it ends?" Clara didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, her face a mask of confusion and regret. I could see the conflict in her eyes. Part of her wanted to stay, but the other part of her had already walked away. "I don't know," she whispered. "I wish I had a clear answer for you. But I don't." I wanted to scream, to tell her that this wasn't how things were supposed to go. We were supposed to fix things, work through it together. But deep down, I knew. I knew that whatever was left between us wasn't enough to hold us together. She turned to leave, but then paused at the door. "I'm sorry, Mark. I really am." I didn't say anything. What could I say? As she walked out of the room, I sat back down on the couch, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. This wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the end of everything I had thought was real. And in that moment, I realized I was lost, too. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Clara's keys jingling by the door. My heart sank, and for a moment, I convinced myself I had imagined the whole thing. The confession, the betrayal, everything. But the emptiness in the house told me otherwise. I got out of bed slowly, the weight of last night still heavy on my chest. My mind was racing, every thought spinning in a blur. What was I supposed to do now? Where did I even begin? And then, I heard her. "Mark." Her voice was soft, hesitant. I didn't know how to respond. My body felt frozen, like I had been put on pause. "I'm leaving," she said, her words almost too quiet to hear. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of her footsteps, followed by the rustle of her bags. And then, she was gone. I sat there in the stillness, my mind swirling. I had spent years building my life around Clara. And now? Now, I was just sitting here, watching the pieces of my life scatter. I didn't know how long I sat there, just staring at the door. My thoughts were like a whirlwind, each one pushing me further into a place I wasn't sure I could escape from. I had always thought that if anything happened, if we faced a problem, we would deal with it together. But Clara had already made her choice. And so, I was left here, alone, with nothing but the echoes of what we had once shared. It was 2 days before Clara called me. 2 days of silence that felt like a lifetime. I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd gone to work, tried to focus on anything that could distract me from the chaos in my mind, but it was impossible. Every thought kept circling back to her, to the way she left, to the words she said. I hadn't expected a phone call. Honestly, after everything that had happened, I figured she would just move on. She had made her choice, after all. But as I sat at my desk, the familiar ringtone pulled me out of my daze. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I knew who it was before I even picked up. Mark. Her voice came through the phone, hesitant. It was the first time I'd heard it since she left, and it sounded different. I leaned back in my chair, my stomach twisting. Clara, I said, my voice tight. What do you want? She sighed, and I could hear the weariness in her breath. I don't know what to say to you. I need to talk. Can we meet? My first instinct was to refuse. I didn't want to see her. Not yet. But part of me, the part that still wanted answers, still wanted to understand what had happened, knew I couldn't just ignore her. I agreed to meet, though I had no idea what it would accomplish. That evening, we met at a small cafe. It was quiet, almost too quiet, with the soft hum of the espresso machine in the background. I watched her as she sat across from me, her eyes downcast. She looked like she hadn't slept, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She was dressed casually, but something about the way she carried herself felt distant, like a stranger who used to be close. I'm sorry, Mark, she started, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it, but I couldn't keep running away from the truth. The words cut through me like a knife. The truth? What truth, Clara? The truth that you've been lying to me for months? The truth that you've been with him all this time? Her eyes filled with tears, and she quickly wiped them away. It wasn't about him, not really. It was about me. I've been so lost, Mark. I didn't know who I was anymore. And when I met Ethan, it felt like I was waking up from a dream I didn't even know I was in. I stared at her, my heart racing. I couldn't make sense of what she was saying. So you thought cheating would fix that? You thought running away from our life together would make everything better? I didn't know what else to do, she admitted, her voice shaking. I thought I could fix it, that maybe with him, I could feel something again. I was looking for something I couldn't find in myself anymore. I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of what I've done. But I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Her words stung. The more she spoke, the more it felt like she was unraveling everything we had built together. The trust, the years, the quiet moments we shared. Was it all just a lie? Was she just waiting for the right moment to leave? Why didn't you just tell me? I asked, my voice barely audible. Why didn't you come to me before it all got this far? I couldn't, Mark, she said, shaking her head. I was scared. Scared of what I might lose. Scared of the truth coming out. But now I don't know how to fix any of this. I don't know if it's even possible. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. She was sitting there, apologizing, telling me she was lost, that she was scared. But where was the woman I had married? Where was the woman who promised we would face everything together? I don't know what to say, Clara. I finally replied, my voice breaking. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. I don't know if I can look at you the same way again. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I needed you to know the truth. I couldn't leave without telling you. I couldn't keep lying. The silence between us grew thick, suffocating. I wanted to say something, but nothing felt right. Nothing could fix this. Nothing could undo the hurt she had caused. I stood up, unable to sit there any longer. I need some time, Clara, I said, my voice steady, but the pain underneath was clear. I can't do this right now. She nodded, her face stricken with guilt. I understand. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And with that, I walked away. I didn't look back. The days after meeting Clara at the cafe were a blur. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, over and over, like a broken record. Every word she said, every pause, every tear she shed. It was all still too fresh, too raw. I wasn't sure if I was angry or just numb. Maybe both. I thought I'd have some kind of clarity after seeing her, but all I felt was confusion. Clara was still the woman I had shared years with, but she was also someone else now. A woman I didn't know. And the worst part? I couldn't stop thinking about what she had said about Ethan. How he made her feel alive. How he filled the void she claimed I couldn't. It gnawed at me, that thought. Was I not enough for her anymore? Did she think I couldn't give her what she needed? I tried to focus on work, tried to do anything that could help me forget the mess my life had become, but the more I tried to bury it, the worse it got. Every corner I turned, I saw her face, heard her voice, and remembered how she had looked at me when she told me everything. It haunted me. That night, I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. My stomach twisted when I saw it was a text from Clara. We need to talk. I'm at the old apartment. I froze. The old apartment? The place we had lived in before moving to the new house. The place that still held memories of the early days of our relationship, before things started to slip. Why was she there? I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door, my mind racing. What now? What more could she possibly have to say? When I arrived, the building looked as empty as I felt. Clara was waiting for me in front of the building, standing under the dim streetlight. She looked small, fragile, like she was about to break. I approached her slowly, my heart beating fast. "Clara, what's this about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't answer at first, just stood there with her head down, as if she didn't know where to start. Finally, she lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't place. "I've been thinking about everything. About us," she said quietly, her voice wavering. "I've made a huge mistake, Mark, and I need you to understand that I didn't want any of this to happen." I stepped closer, my anger starting to bubble up again. "Then why did you do it, Clara? Why did you keep lying to me? Why did you throw everything away?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered, stepping back, as if the words were too heavy to bear. "But I've realized something. I wasn't being honest with you, or with myself." My pulse quickened. "What are you talking about?" "I've been seeing Ethan, yes. But there's something I never told you." She paused, taking a deep breath, her eyes never leaving mine. "I wasn't just looking for someone else. I was running away. From you. From myself. From everything." The words hit me harder than anything she had said before. Running away. It was the truth she hadn't said when she left, the one that cut deeper than any affair. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had checked out of our life entirely. "I was scared, Mark," she said, almost pleading. "I thought if I kept pretending, if I kept living the way I was, it would get better. But it didn't. It got worse." I stood there, speechless. I didn't know what to say. She had finally admitted it. All of it. And now I was left standing in the ruins of what we once had, trying to make sense of it all. "I don't know if I can fix this," she said quietly, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I don't even know if you want me to. But I need you to understand why I did it. I don't know if I can forgive you," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can trust you again." Her eyes filled with tears, and she stepped forward, reaching for my hand. But I pulled away. "I'm sorry, Clara, but I think we're beyond fixing." The words came out of my mouth before I could stop them. I didn't want to say them, didn't want to make it real. But I had to. I had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. She looked at me one last time, her face full of regret and sadness. "I understand. I didn't want to lose you." And with that, she turned and walked away. I watched her go, feeling the weight of the finality in her steps. She was leaving, for good this time. And for the first time in days, I felt a strange sense of peace. Not because I had the answers, but because I had finally let go. It was the quiet that got to me. The silence after Clara left. At first, I thought it would be a relief. Finally, no more arguments, no more unanswered questions. But it wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. I spent the next few days in a haze, just moving through life like a ghost. I went to work, tried to put on a brave face, but every time I came home, I was reminded of what had been lost. The house felt too big, too empty. I walked into rooms we used to share, and every corner seemed to whisper her name. One evening, as I sat at the kitchen table, a familiar scent hit me. It was the smell of her perfume. My heart skipped a beat. I turned around, expecting to see her standing there, but no one was there. It was just a memory, a shadow of what was once real. The apartment was still hers, in a way. Her things were gone, but the absence was louder than anything she had ever left behind. I tried to distract myself. I binge-watched shows, read, even called a few friends. But nothing felt right. Not without her. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but when I saw the message, my heart nearly stopped. "Mark, I need to talk. Can we meet?" It was Clara. I stared at the text for what felt like an eternity. Part of me wanted to delete it, to ignore it and move on. But I couldn't. There was something about it that pulled me in, something I couldn't quite explain. After everything, could we really find closure? Could we fix what had been broken? I agreed to meet her the next day. We chose a quiet park, a neutral ground where we could talk without the pressure of being in the same space that once held all our memories. When I arrived, Clara was already there. She was sitting on a bench, looking more like the woman I used to know. Her hair was a little longer, and she had that same look in her eyes, The one that used to make me laugh. The one that used to remind me of all the reasons I fell in love with her. But there was something different now. Something older. Something wiser. She stood up when she saw me, and for a moment, we just stood there, unsure of what to say. Then, finally, she spoke. I've made a mess of things, Mark. And I'm sorry. For everything. I nodded, taking a deep breath. We've both made mistakes, Clara. I'm not blameless in all of this either. We both paused, the weight of our past heavy between us. I've spent so much time blaming you, I continued, that I didn't stop to think about what I could have done differently, what I could have done better for both of us. Her eyes softened, and she stepped closer, though still keeping her distance. I've been thinking about that too, about what I lost, about how much I took for granted. We stood there, facing each other, in the quiet stillness of the park. There was no rush now, no sense of urgency. Just two people who had come to terms with their past, and for the first time in a long while, there was peace. Not in the way we had hoped for, but in the way we both needed. I'm not saying we can just pick up where we left off, Clara said softly. But maybe we can find a way to start fresh. Not as who we were, but as who we are now. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal, the anger, or the hurt. What I felt was hope. It wasn't the same as before, but it was something new, something real. I'd like that, I said quietly, a small smile tugging at my lips. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. And just like that, the tension that had held us in its grip began to ease. It wasn't perfect, and I didn't expect it to be. But for the first time in a long while, we were both willing to take a step forward, not as a couple, but as individuals who had found their way back to each other. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the park, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like everything would be okay. Not because everything had been fixed, but because we had both learned how to let go of the past and embrace the future, whatever that might bring. And that was enough for now.